Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. My guest today doesn't just preach alternative energy, he practices it. It's Aaron Bugg. He's a community organizer here in Paducah, and he's going to tell us about a solar panel project at Paducah Cooperative Ministry. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
Let's begin with the basics. Tell us about this program.
What we're doing is we're going to be installing Paducah's first grid-tied solar system on the Paducah Cooperative Ministry's Fresh Start Village emergency housing. And so it will help provide 25 years of free, clean, renewable energy for women and children who need emergency housing.
Wow. Now, again, let's get back to the very basics. I was a history major. I know nothing about scientific stuff. How in the world does a solar panel work?
I myself am not a scientist, so I don't know.
But you put them on the roof of a house.
Right, and I know it helps if they're south-facing. I know the basics, and I'm learning as I go. Because one thing I want to stress is that the reason I don't dress up fancy for things like this is because, or for events that we have, is because I want to encourage the whole community, no matter if it's your first thing to volunteer for or you're, like a veteran at it. We want to encourage everyone to get on board with this project and bring the whole community in, all inclusive. And so we are actually working with a energy consultant who specializes in solar energy, who's walking us through all this and teaching us as we go. Well,
I would assume cooperative ministry, that's not, they wouldn't think about solar panels either, really, I guess, would they?
No, they, actually, we at the Paducah Bourbon Society are the ones who came to them about it.
The Paducah Bourbon Society?
Yeah, so a bunch of bourbon geeks like us, we just like to give to charities while we can, because we think it's cool that we can celebrate bourbon and teach people about it and have fun and socialize, and that's great. But why not do something more with it? Why not use it as a vehicle to give back to the community? And so they had been doing food drives for PCM, and they decided to do something different, and we decided to do something that's going to keep giving. So
interesting. Have you all developed any chance maybe a solar-powered still or anything?
That might be coming. That might be the next project.
Think about it. That'd be a great show. If you get one, come on back, because I've had some moonshiners on before. That could be really interesting. So,
yeah.
So anyway, so these things, they take the sun and it converts to electricity. Well, the most obvious question is, what happens when the sun goes down or if it's cloudy?
Well, the reason it's grid tied is because obviously when the sun goes down, it's not producing. But when the sun is out, you're usually overproducing. And so we will be developing sort of like an account with PCM, or with Paducah Power, I mean.
Right.
So that way we're getting like credit for the energy we produce, and that will offset our energy bill even in the times when the sun's not out as much, especially in the winter. We know it gets very gray and cloudy here. Right, but in the summer, we're probably going to be overproducing.
Right, right. Well, do these things have batteries that store electricity?
There are battery options for houses, but we won't have that ourselves. We will actually be tied into Paducah Power's grid. We will be giving them solar energy, feeding that into their grid.
So the power these things produce will go into the grid, which is, I guess, comes from Kentucky Dam and places like that, electric plants.
Right.
That's interesting. I have noticed that solar energy is beginning to catch on here. I live in Mayfield, and there is actually a solar-powered sign, and it's got a little gizmo on top, and it flashes.
I've seen those.
Yeah, but would you say that the United States is sort of behind Europe in development of solar power?
We're definitely behind. I would say Europe as a whole, and especially certain countries, we're far behind them. I know Germany is going 100% clean and renewable energy, which is also geothermal, wind, not just solar. And we are behind a number of countries. And I think it's especially disappointing since through the Industrial Revolution, we contributed the most to air pollution with carbon pollution. And our U.S. military they will tell you this themselves on their website and things, in Pentagon reports. They are the biggest polluter. So we're a big contributor.
How so in the military?
Just all of their means of operation, all of their vehicles. It's just a sizable operation and not very efficient. But they themselves have also announced that, this was a couple years ago in a report, that they were going to be pitching in and doing their part and cutting back and becoming more clean and efficient, which I think is very cool.
I wonder, though, that perhaps Europe is ahead of us because gasoline and oil has always been much more expensive in Europe than it was here. Even back when gas went way up here, it was always twice or three times expensive in Europe, which I think is also why the Europeans developed smaller, energy-efficient cars than we did. Because when I was going to college, I hate to tell you this, but gasoline was 29 cents a gallon. That was high test, premium gas.
Yeah, dude,
so it's a necessity. It is. But you travel in Germany and you see these giant windmills. Now, I haven't seen any of those around here. Are there any of those huge, looks like big airplane propellers on a stick?
In southern Illinois, there are several. Whenever I worked on the river, I worked on the Illinois River, and we would be traveling to catch the boat. We'd go up through Illinois, through southern Illinois, and I'd see several farms with wind turbines. And actually, I was going to see a friend in Benton, and on my way home to Paducah, I saw a number of farms with solar panels. So it's really catching on, and it's
Benton, Illinois, you mean?
No, this was in Benton, Kentucky.
Benton, there are some here in western Kentucky. There's some.
There's actually an installer in Murray, Kentucky.
Now, these are the giant ones with the huge propellers?
No, I'm talking solar.
Oh, solar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the wind turbines were in southern Illinois on farms.
Yeah.
And I know farms also, electricity is very costly for them, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of these farmers were taking advantage of tax subsidies, and they were getting solar panels, or I guess in Illinois, they did wind. So it's catching on. It is.
Well, and again, and I've seen these things on trucks. You probably have too, going on these huge blades and huge equipment that goes with them. So, okay, what if the wind stops? Do they have batteries? Or is it the same? They're hooked into the grid like solar panels?
I'm not as familiar with wind, but I do know that they're usually hooked into the grid also, and it's the same thing. And it's all about a blend of energy, really, because you might still need to, especially while the technology is still fairly new, rely on traditional fossil fuel power plants and in dams and things. But it's just a matter of like offsetting that more costly energy with some cheaper stuff.
You mentioned geothermal a minute ago. Of course, what exactly is that?
I know it's it's converting the heat from inside the earth into energy. And again,
Right.
I know the basic layman's explanation for most of these things. When it gets down to the hard science, I'm not an expert, so.
I'm not either, but I have seen that in Iceland. That's all they have. You don't see any smoke anywhere. And I'm telling you what, you've got to be careful when you turn on the tap. You could brew a cup of tea out of the tap. It's very hot water. But I mean, everywhere you go, they've got these steam plants. And of course, now the water doesn't taste, it tastes really sulfuric, got a bad whang to it because it's coming from the bowels of the earth. But that country, I guess it's probably the cleanest atmosphere in the world because they do not have they don't burn anything. They don't have to. Of course, it's a volcano they're sitting on there. But again, I was near where I live in Mayfield, there's a field and it's got solar panels in it. And I don't know anything about it other than it's like, wow, they're big. And they've got like a chain link fence around it. Now, so what they would do with that would take a physical wire and hook it to a pole, and that's how that would work? Is that how the PCM thing works? You basically got a wire that hooks in.
Well, I mean, it'll be wired in to the grid, and that will be done, I guess like traditionally, like how the house is wired into the grid.
Yeah, wow. So how much money do they expect to save over the long haul on this?
So I know the monthly savings. Our first installment we're doing very soon in just a couple of weeks. It will save them $500 a month in energy on this one housing unit. And then we'll be doing another installation at the end of the summer which will save them $1,500 a month. It'll nearly power the entire that entire one complex, which is a few apartments in it.
Wow. Are there tax credits for installing these things?
There are, but from what I understand, there's federal tax credits. From what I understand, those will be going away soon, if they haven't already.
What is the cost of one of these? So you install this. What does it cost to install one?
So it is very costly. It takes about 8 years to pay off what you pay for. But our first system is going to be about $10,000, which will generate the $500 a month for 25 years. And they are upgradable. And so, but the more it's like with any other product, the more you buy, usually the better deal you get on the panels. That's why some places do co-ops. Yeah. And it's much more practical for people to invest into that then.
And the price will go down. It's like anything else. I remember when calculators came out and digital cameras, they were unbelievably expensive. And now they're still expensive, but they're reasonable with it. But it's definitely the way with the future, because the coal's not going to come back. That's just a fact of life. I mean, natural gas is preferred to coal. And, they keep talking about these coal jobs. Well, coal is also mechanizing heavily. And a lot of these jobs that humans did are now done by machines. And I did read something the other day, or heard something the other day, that Adam Elan, his program, they're putting up solar panels on top of a mountaintop that was blown off as part of this to recover. In what you mentioned, West Virginia, they're doing this in West Virginia. Is this a good way to put coal miners back to work?
Well, I know the plan for Adam Elan's plan that they're doing is to retrain coal miners and to bring them in, and they're very inviting and friendly about that. That one hasn't been confirmed, but as much press release as they've been doing for it, I would imagine it's very likely to happen. And I don't see why not, because they could use the jobs there. And the one really cool thing about that too is he has like a consulting company that is helping two partners, and one is a solar company and another is a coal company. And I'm not sure who either of them are, but yeah, I know that I did read that and hear that in some of his interviews. So it seems like maybe even some of the coal industry is catching on to the changing trend and adapting, which makes sense.
Well, again, I think what retarded the growth of this in the United States was cheap gasoline for years. And so we have to do something to change. And but it fascinates me. As I said, I'm beginning to see these solar panels all around. And so how can people find out, well, people like me, history major, how can I find out more about this sort of thing? And community organizing too. You got a lot of people out here who would like to be involved in something like this. And so how do you find out? Do you all have a website or?
We do. We have a Facebook page, which I would recommend going to, which is it's the Bourbon Society's, Paducah Bourbon Society's Facebook page. And also we have a page called West Kentucky Tomorrow, which a few friends and I started, which is a really good page to follow for updates on this project specifically. The idea of that page was just to promote and help like plan the events for more community organizing like this.
City government, have they been involved in this?
Not directly, no. But they're very friendly toward it. Some friends of mine in city council, they know about it, and they think it's a very cool idea. And they've been supportive. Granted, we will be needing, to get the proper paperwork done for permits, and we're working on that right now, and the city's been cooperative with that, because I don't know why they wouldn't be.
Right. Have they talked about doing this in public buildings?
No, I haven't heard any talk of that, but I think it'd be great. And I think it'd be great if this caught on. And part of what we want to do is to show people that solar is possible in the city, that you can do it. And it's only going to get cheaper. So, people's houses They can start developing these panels on them more and more as it gets cheaper. But also, we think it's a great idea for people to organize around nonprofits that are as good as Paducah Cooperative Ministry, and to help give them something that is sustainable, that's going to keep giving, and it will also, it's a big return on investment. So it's an important thing to, you know, donate cans or show up to, you know, do different things that are immediate, you know, donate clothes, whatever. But we thought it was an even better idea to start doing something new, which was, you know, when we donate $1 into this, it turns into about $2 in energy. So that's fairly new as far as like donations go for charities, in our opinion, as far as we can tell.
It is.
We want to inspire more people to do it in the community, in the state, and across the whole country.
Has this attracted media attention, what you're doing?
It has. We've had some stories in the Paducah Sun and also in News Channel 6, but that was just the big announcement of it. And but there's not really much to report on until you actually see the panels going up on the roof. That's when it gets exciting. So we will be having a big media rollout again whenever they start installing here soon.
Where are these panels manufactured?
They are manufactured in a place in Ohio. So that was another thing we stressed too. We could have gotten more panels if we had gone with cheaper panels and we had gone with Chinese panels. But we are, you know, trying to do this with a conscience. And so we wanted American-made panels, and also they'll last longer, statistically, according to our consultant. So it's another good reason too.
How fragile? You think of hailstorms. Are they? Well, nothing's weatherproof, but are they weather resistant?
They're pretty weather resistant. I actually have a friend who has some panels at her house. Her dad hooked those up herself, and their house is entirely, whenever it's producing high, it's off the grid. And actually, they haven't had an electric bill from the power plant for about a year or two, maybe. And so, but anyways, yeah, it's been weather resistant for the couple of years that they've had it. You know, when it's snowing, if they want to produce more, they need to go and like sweep the snow off of the panels and things like that. But from what I understand, that's not absolutely necessary.
Are there some solar dwellings or buildings that are off the grid? They're freestanding and they totally do it all themselves?
Yeah, you can have a battery pack, but those are pretty expensive. And we looked into that and we decided that it wasn't really necessary. But again, it can be added later. So that could be something cool to just be entirely self-sufficient. And I guess that would probably make sense in places that are more sense in places that are sunnier, in states that are sunnier.
Well, you think of Arizona, New Mexico as having that kind of a situation there. Well, these batteries must be huge, though.
I don't think they are. I mean, they fit, you know, pretty cozily on a house. And I would imagine they're not too unflattering, because I know people like my own mother probably wouldn't be a big fan of them. And I don't think they would sell too much if it was this big, ugly, you know, monster on the side of your house. So I would imagine it's you know, not an eyesore. And again, they're getting smaller and better all the time.
Oh, absolutely. The technology. This is definitely the way of the future. I'm quite sure. And of course, I remember reading about solar-powered cars back in the day. Is that being developed at all, to your knowledge? Yeah,
I've seen some news on those, but I don't know as much about that as I do panels for, you know, buildings. But I know that is in the works again, and it's gaining momentum, which I think is great. By major car manufacturers.
Well, it'd have to be the majors that would do it, because it'd be so difficult to start up otherwise. So, getting back to wind, do you see that developing in our part of the country anytime soon?
I don't know how practical it is in Western Kentucky. I would think I would see more of it, especially since Southern Illinois has it. But I don't know. It might just be that there's no market for it yet, and there's no installers that work in this area. But again, there is an installer. Well, there are two installers. Wayne Caterpillar installs in Western Kentucky. They've just started, and they're actually the ones who will be doing the installation for PCM with us. And then there's also another one in Murray called, I think, Harvest Energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they do solar, but I'm not sure about wind or anything else.
Well, you think of, on the Great Plains, windmills. And of course, the wind's constantly blowing on the Great Plains. And of course, I guess those windmills were pumping water. But I guess it'd be the same principle for electricity with them. And I would assume there would be, in the United States, on the Great Plains, you would see a fair number of these giant windmills. Oh, I've seen them in Pennsylvania and West Virginia and up east. So it obviously would be the same here.
Yeah, I know in Iowa, I think it's really taking off.
Oh yeah, you can see Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, those states would really be going great guns. And I think one of the the sustainability, sustainable economy, because you've got jobs on the one hand, and environment on the other, and it's sometimes it's difficult to merge them together. Is that sort of your all's overall goal, to try to make sure that jobs as well as environmental concerns?
In a way, yes. Again, we want to support American jobs, and we'll be doing that with the manufacturing and the installation. And also, our philosophy is the triple bottom line of sustainability, which is a project that is economically, ethically, and environmentally sustainable. And if you have all three of those to some degree, sometimes it'll be more of one or two than the other. But then you have a really sound foundation for whatever it is you're doing.
That's a winning combination. That's a triple winner there.
And this one is absolutely following the triple bottom line.
Yeah. Do you run into skeptics to this? Oh, this isn't going to work. You shouldn't be doing this.
Surprisingly, not as many as I would have expected. I'm sure, I would think that would come, but once the panels start going up, you can't be a skeptic anymore unless you're just convinced that they won't produce or won't keep going. But again, once PCM starts releasing how much they saved in their annual report, which they do a report every year about all their cost expenditure. Once they start showing off how much their electric bills are dropping down, that'll blow the skeptics out of the water.
Yeah, and I could see even churches putting these things up.
I've heard of people, and I forget where it was, that have had churches that have done the same thing. I think it's great.
That would be, yeah. Well, again, it seems to me it's inevitable that coal is not coming back. Oil is we've got to have an alternative to oil. I mean, look at the Middle East and all the bloodshed over oil. Years ago, Senator Wendell Ford said we wouldn't be over there if they were exporting tangerines. And you think about that, about the dependency upon oil and everything that's tied into oil, the products that are involved in oil. And I think it behooves the societies to figure a way to wean ourselves off that. But then again, you've got to come back to the whole equation of jobs. How many jobs are connected to oil, automobile production, everything? So, and that's a really delicate balance. But that's a topic that's always fascinated me, is this idea of sustainable economies. How do you do this?
And as far as you're talking about with jobs, and I don't know the hard technical stuff because numbers just aren't my thing.
Mine neither.
I'm more of a narrative than numbers guy.
Me too. My math grades would show you that. I will say this: 6 weeks, and I was 6th grade. I made a B in math. Everything else were F's and D's for my whole career. And I will say this: God bless Murray State University. When I enrolled at Murray in 1967, you did not have to take college algebra. Otherwise, I would have never graduated.
Yeah, that's not the case now. And otherwise, I may have not dropped out.
Well, it's funny. When I would advise students, I would say, back in the day, and I don't want to hear that. I said, well, I got to tell you anyway. Back in the day, you don't have to take college algebra. I don't want to hear that. Too bad. Anyway, but I digress.
The good old days, huh? Yeah.
The good old days. Yeah. No math. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as far as you're talking about jobs, one thing I was reading about in a book by, Robert Paulin, I think is his name. He's an economist in the Northeast in Massachusetts, I believe, at University of Amherst, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And he has a nonprofit that installs solar panels. And there, they actually, if you overproduce, you get money from the utility company. And so what they do is they will install panels for free, and whatever money you make off of the panels from the electric company, they just take that. So you get free energy, they skim the money, and that's how they continue to operate. And they're like sort of a hybrid nonprofit for-profit group. They want to make it affordable.
Well, that's real sustainability there.
Absolutely. But I kind of got off track. But this guy, I read a book of his that was very good. And I think it was called like Green Economy. And he said that in order to create more jobs, so for all the research they've done, going into renewables is a very good plan for that, because renewable jobs require, or renewable energy requires more jobs than does fossil fuel as a whole. Because you can't use, like in coal for extraction, they use these giant machines, building-sized machines to, take this coal out. You can't do that to install solar panels on a house, or, even to install like wind turbines and do maintenance and things. So it requires more people to do installations than it does for, the amount of workforce it does for fossil fuel. And so you'll actually get a job surplus whenever you start switching to renewables. And I think that's another thing that we are very passionate about, is to, bring jobs into the state where we know they're leaving all the time. And that's why I applaud anyone who starts installing solar in Eastern Kentucky and retrains these coal miners that are getting laid off, because they did work very hard to power the country.
They did.
It was the backbone of the country.
And a very dangerous job.
Yeah, and they deserve some new work.
Amen. You're right about that. Yeah. We have 1 minute left. What's some contact info? If someone wants to talk to you about this, or the PCM, or whoever, what are some phone numbers, website, whatever?
We can put some links up. But we do have also a link that'll be on the screen for the GoFundMe to donate online. We really encourage that so we can keep going. And then you can also find Paducah Cooperative Ministry's website online. If you Google search them, you can see how they work. They're very great. One thing, if I can squeeze it in, what they do is they don't just house people, they help them get back on their own feet. And so they give them counseling, financial advice, they help them find new work, new housing. And so it's to eliminate the recidivism of homelessness.
Very good. And the few seconds we have left, I just got to know this. What's your favorite bourbon?
My favorite bourbon? I really like Knob Creek.
Knob Creek.
Yeah.
How about Elijah Craig? You like that one?
Yeah.
He's not a relative, wish he was. And by the way, Elijah Craig was a Baptist preacher. We better end on that. I'm Barry Craig. My guest today was Aaron Bugg. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Barry.